we all knew from the very start, even before the president, even before Duterte took office in Malacanang, we knew about his position with regard to human rights, and he does seem to have been consistent about his position with human rights. I'm wondering, lang, in the last 5 years, has there been any? Have you noticed any change in the way his government has been handling the issue of human rights? Is it getting better or is it getting worse? I ask that because, for example, this year we have seen the rise in what you might call red tagging among other things. Yeah. So are we seeing an improvement or are we seeing a worsening of the situation?
Well, generally, I would say there's a worsening of the situation. But also, to be fair, the government has engaged with the international community when at the Human Rights Council in October, for instance. It succeeded in convincing the Human Rights Council and the member states to pretty much go easy on the Philippines. So that in a way that is good news because they're engaging, unlike the rhetoric with the president and subsequent action when the Philippines got out of the Rome Statute that created the International Criminal Court. So at least you can see that more than just spewing disinformation against the human rights movement and against activists documenting the human rights violation, they are engaging the international community. Of course, the quality of that engagement remains to be seen. We have a lot of issue with the quality of that engagement, but at least they're not shutting down the door completely. But again, you pointed out that for instance, in the matter of red tagging, it has worsened. It has the attacks on civil society has worsened. The constricting of the democratic space is really intensifying. You have these arrests. You have questionable arrests by the authorities, and you have the continuing assault on indigenous peoples in the countryside. And right now, the introduction of the anti-terrorism law is really it presents a very, very complicated dilemma or a problem for the human rights movement because this law is going to be misused by the government against dissenters, against activists. And we're seeing that right now.
Okay, but the implementation is not yet even in full swing. So once it kicks into high gear, are you looking at an intensification of that problem?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, you have to look at the anti-terrorism law as a partnership with, it works in tandem with the National Task Force on Ending Local Communist Insurgency. The anti-terrorism law will be used against progressive element, the activists from the left, not so much the usual, extremist groups that were the target of anti-terror law in the past. But this is going to be used for or against activists, and this will be misused against the activists. And our fear is that because the law is so broad, the law is so, it gives so much power to the Anti-Terrorism Council to designate anybody as a terrorist. That is a very, very problematic aspect of the law. Just, warrantless arrest, you can be held without charges for up to 24 days. That's really scary, if you ask me.
Yes, well, Kaloy, the government has said that they will actually use the terror law against certain groups that are being red tagged. But anyway, I think the president thinks he can get away with it because of all these surveys showing that he still enjoys a phenomenal support if you go by the numbers. Huh?
Yeah.
Wala naman nagki-questionan. But do you think we're just about a year and a half away from the elections? You think people will want a continuation of these policies? Is it a support, these surveys? Do you think it's a support for these policies actually, for the drug war, for the his policies on human rights? And do you think it will continue beyond 2022?
Well, a few things there. We have to unpack some of that. There's no denying that President Duterte is extremely popular. It's a mind-boggling popularity.
Yes.
I don't think there's any other leader in the world who has that kind of popularity.
Yes.
But look, will this continue? I think there are a few things here. One is that as long as the international accountability mechanisms like the ICC and the Human Rights Council and the international community will not act, will not act decisively on what's happening in the Philippines, I mean, it will be business as usual. And as long as I think, the popularity, as long as there is no alternative, as long as the political opposition is in disarray, as long as people feel that nobody else is offering alternatives to the problems that Mr. Duterte has been claiming, then it will continue. So this is a failure of politics in general, I think, and unfortunately for a lot of Filipinos, and we know this, they look for alternative, and right now they're not seeing a lot. All they're seeing are groups like ours, activists, rallying in the streets, and which the government can easily dismiss, but they're not seeing anything from, for instance, the political opposition, from the institutions that can offer a viable alternative to Mr. Duterte's policies. I mean, I'm not just talking about him being popular. It's just the policies. I mean, the democratic institutions of the country right now are so damaged, are so undermined, that nothing seems to be coming out of there that would compel Mr. Duterte to change course.